guys, today we're gonna be doing, why am I doing all that? My face is so stiff. I gotta keep this on for 10 more minutes. We're gonna be doing my March reading wrap up. I read, how many books did I read? I should have had this already pulled up, but as you can see, I did this on a whim. Okay, so I went on Goodreads and I read 23 books for the month of March. So let's get into that after I go take this face mask off. So yeah, I'll be back. Okay, so this is my March reading wrap up. So yeah, I originally did a TikTok trend thing. Well, it was a TikTok trend / filter. Hold on. And for the month of March, I was supposed to read, I actually don't remember, so I gotta watch the video over again. 15 books. I was supposed to read 15 books for March. Yeah. I read 23, so exceeded the goal. And I'm currently sitting, bruh, I have the app open. I am currently sitting at 44 out of 100 books read for the year. And we're just, I'm filming this on April 1st, but this is just as of March 31st. Because I had one book that I wanted to finish before April 1st, but then I took a really long nap. And by the time I woke up, it was 1:13 in the morning. And it was April 1st. So I failed at that, clearly. Anyway, let's start with the wrap up. So I talked about this in my previous video, but since I finished it in March, I included it in this March reading wrap up, is The Ritual by God, I can't pronounce people's names. Oh my God. Chantel Tessier. I love this book, bro. I will say that if you're not into dark romance, don't read it. I'm gonna tell you, it has a ton of trigger warnings. It's basically, if I remember correctly, it's set in a college scene, kind of like has a secret society for men and like a sister secret society for women, but the women don't really get a choice necessarily, but the men don't get a choice either. And anyway, he claims her, but she has to willingly go into it. I'm trying to give you details without spoiling it. Anyway, they're together. He's very possessive. Nobody gets to see you but me. Very heavy on the sexual content. It's very smut. Like, it has a ton of smut in it, but it's good. It's a good balance. But it does have like a mystery to it also. Like, I'm trying to give you much without spoiling it. Anyway, I read that. I rated that 5 out of 5. If you don't like dark romance, you probably won't rate it 5 out of 5. But please read the trigger warnings. I swear to God, read the trigger warnings. Yeah. Alright, the next one I read was Andrea the Beginning by Adriana Brin. It's a series, but I only read the first one. I'm not gonna lie, I rated this 3 stars. I didn't like it as much. Like, I feel like it could have been more, especially because it was supposed to be like a mafia book. I don't remember much about it. I read it in less than a day, but like, it took all day. Instead of one of those, I sat there and read it for like hours. Like, I wasn't sitting here like, oh my God, let me read. I felt like it was more like, oh, I started this at like 9 a.m., read for about 30 minutes, and kind of like, let me do something and then come back to it. Okay, read for a little bit more, let me do something, come back to it. Like, that's how it kind of was. Like, it wasn't giving what it was supposed to give, but I still finished it because I'm really not a big fan of DNFing books. I've done it once in like the past 2.5 years of me reading, but I won't do it as often as I should. I feel like at one point in this book I did skim because it wasn't doing what it was supposed to do. Next I read this entire series. So the first one is Wicked Liars by Laura Lee. It's a part of the Windsor Academy series. Like, I read books 1, 2, 3, and 4. For the first one, I gave it 4 stars. It's basically, from what I remember, is basically them in high school. It's a private high school. You have your kings and your queens of the school. They're all rich, all entitled. But there's some dark mystery going on. I believe this book also has trigger warnings because it's not like a sweet romance. That's how I would put it. Trying to say how much about it, but I was giving it away. I really try not to give spoilers. So this girl, her mother dies, and then she goes to live with her biological father that she had no idea about. Turns out he's super loaded and super rich. She gets separated from her younger sister, and she's trying to, like, her goal is to get custody of her younger sister. That's what they have, separate fathers, so that's how they separated. So she started going to school, and she's kind of like, screw the hierarchy, like, I'm gonna do what I'm gonna do. I just came here to, you know, pass, get out, and that's it. Like, I'm not trying to draw attention to myself, but by doing that, she draws attention to herself because she doesn't realize, you know, who's in, I'm not gonna say this, but who's in charge, basically. Yeah, and that's pretty much how it goes. And then it keeps going through book 1, book 2, book 3, book 4, because it focuses on the one couple from book 1 and book 2, and then book 3. Actually, I think book 1, 2, and 3. Yeah, book 1, 2, and 3 follows the one couple, and book 4 is a separate couple. But then you get to see another couple develop within books 2 and 3, I believe. Yeah. The mystery behind it, though, is that their fathers are in some type of corrupt business, and they're trying to figure it out and kind of expose them or make sure they get what they deserve for doing the crimes they committed. Yeah, okay. So book 2, I rated 4 out of 5 stars. Book 3, I rated 4 out of 5 stars. In book 4, I rated 4 out of 5 stars. So I like that series. The next series, I'm not gonna lie, I read and then took a break and switched genres a little bit. I'm not genres. I switched. So it was dark romance, and I read the series. I read books 1, 2, and 3 first. I'm trying to remember completely. Yeah. So I read books 1, 2, and 3 first. It's Pretty Little Savage by Lucy Smoke. And then I read Stone Cold Queen by Lucy Smoke, and then Natural Born Killers by Lucy Smoke. So books 1 and 2 focus on one couple, and then books 3 focuses on another couple. And I want to say I read these fairly quickly. They're dark romance. They have trigger warnings. Do not read them if you don't like dark romance, but if you do, I feel like it's a must read. Now, to start it off, this is I'm trying to remember, because I'm reading the last book right now, which I was trying to finish before March, but I didn't. So, for the most part, this is a college romance. It focuses on a group of guys and them finding their partners while also dealing with, like, their parents' sins, kind of. And in the first 2 books, it focuses on Dean and Avalon. Avalon's like, basically, she doesn't take anything. Like, she's not about to bow down to you. And they're tasked with, like, watching her, but they don't know why. But it all has to do with Dean's dad, because he knows why. But he's not telling them why, because he feels like it's need to know information. And that follows them in the book 2, where they find out, and they kind of take care of the problem. Then you have book 3, which is based on Riley and Abel. Abel is also one of the sick boys. That's what they're called in the book. And she is a hacker for them. And basically she has her own traumatic past that she's trying to run from. And because she's a hacker, she set it up so she can get alerts that alert her to when the individual she put behind bars for committing the crime against her is released or put on parole or whatever. And he's released and she gets this weird message saying, you know, that he's coming for her. So she leaves, but she was kind of involved with Abel. So Abel chases after her. And then eventually they come back to the college there at East Point University. And, you know, they solve that issue. I'm trying not to give away too many spoilers, but also tell you kind of the synopsis of it. So, you know, things happen in between. They solve the issue. They're now together. And then, again, like I said, I definitely stopped reading that series and went back to another series because this book wasn't supposed to be released until the end of March, like March 31st, but it was released on March 13th. So I had to go pick up where this other book left on cliffhanger, and it is Wild Thing by Lexi Ray. It's a part of the Ruthless Paradise series. It's book number 4. That one picked up immediately where I thought it was. I'm not going to lie, about 30% into the book I was like, where is this going? And then around like 60% of the book, I want to say I was like, I'm in love, but also where is this going? And then when I kind of got to like the ending, like 98%, 97%, I was like, okay, like this book was through and through thought through. Like, this was honestly, this series was my first reading of dystopian. It was kind of like a dystopian society, but also like it gave that apocalypse kind of vibe. And I was just sitting here like, I like this book, but I would not have picked it up had I not seen it on TikTok. Well, had I not seen the first one on TikTok, which made me read the rest of them. And the ending, it leaves you like, dang, I want to read the next 2 books because there's 2 more books that follow, 5 and 6, but they haven't been released yet. Yeah, I rated that 4 out of 5 stars. And I went back to the Sick Boy series and finished book 4. Oh. So books 1, 2, and 3 were actually about Dean and Avalon, and books 4 was about Abel and Riley. So definitely forget what I said earlier about book 3 being, that was definitely book 4. I rated this 4 out of 5. And I definitely screwed up because I barely remembered that. I think I also read this book while I was in a 24-hour challenge that I have yet to freaking edit and upload. Oh well. And then I did a reread. I reread To Have and to Hate by R.S. Gray. I love this book. Honestly, this book gave me a 5 out of 5. This is not a dark romance. No trigger warnings. It's kind of like a marriage of convenience / fake relationship / I don't know. Honestly, so the synopsis, without giving any spoilers away, is they have to get married so that their family can get, like, I guess they had a trust or whatever, so they have to get married so that their family can get the allotments. And if they don't get the allotments, the money gets donated to something else, or it gets put into the company so the company can flourish, but they don't get jack. So her older sister was supposed to marry the guy, but then the older sister lies and tells the mom that I guess she fell in love with her driver. So the mom calls the other sister, I'm not gonna say the younger because I don't remember if she's the younger sister. She calls the other sister and was like, well, your sister fell in love with the driver. We need you to marry him so that, you know, we can get the money. Without any questions, she does what she's supposed to do and she goes and marries the guy at City Hall. Come to find out later, while talking to her sister that was supposed to marry old buddy, she was like, oh no, I just didn't want to marry him. She was like, seriously, so you made me do something because you just didn't want to do it, you didn't think of the family? But then her and the dude end up kind of slowly falling in love, and then by the end of it, she has, oh, I forgot, so she's an artist. She went to, I think, was it RISD? She went to RISD. So by the end of it, she ends up getting her own show in Paris. And I want to, dang, I can't even say that without spoiling it. Just know that somewhere around 60% of the book, her and her family, she just like, basically like, y'all using me, you don't support me. But he kind of, I'm not saying he kind of supports her. I'm trying not to give too many spoilers. Like, ugh. Trying to say what a book is about without giving too many spoilers is like mind-boggling. What is it? I don't know. Anyway, it's basically a marriage of convenience. They fake date. They were supposed to fake date in public, but they ended up kind of real dating in public. Yeah. I rated that book a 5 out of 5. I'm trying not to give too much away. I don't know what to tell you about that. The next I read the Sinners Anonymous series. Yeah, because that one was on my TBR and I had been putting it off for a while, but then I was like, you know what? I'm gonna pick it up and I'm gonna read it. I read these 3 books back to back, and then I saw 2 more were being made, so I can't wait for those to come out. But I read Sinners Anonymous, Sinners Consumed, and Sinners Condemned. God, I can't talk. Sinners Anonymous, I gave 4 out of 5 stars. And I honestly thought it gave me major Sweetest Oblivion vibes, but it had like its own twist to it, which made it its own original piece. But it kind of gave those vibes because mafia, family member, you know, taking. It was just kind of reversed because it wasn't the bride that was being switched. It was the husband or the fiance or the groom. It was the groom being switched. Not me, bride, groom. Forgot. Yeah. I will say that what I love most about this series was the Sinners Anonymous hotline and how it tied to both relationships in 2 different ways. God, I love it. I do also like that it was family, like the 3 brothers. That's kind of be my favorite part, is that each book kind of is based on a different brother's, like their trait, and then them finding love, but how it relates to how they're individually different. And honestly, it was my first read by this author, so yeah, I gotta say that's something else too. But also the other 2 books I rated, so Sinners Condemned I rated 4 out of 5, and then wrong book, Sinners Consumed I rated also 4 out of 5. And then I read Sleek Kitten and Sleek Sugar by S.J. Tilley. Hockey romance, average read. I would not recommend you read this. Like, I read it and it's over and done with, but I wouldn't say like, I'd be like, hey, you should read this too. Honestly, it was given bare minimum. I wish it would have gave more details. It was basically giving me short story vibes, but it was like longer than a short story should be. And I gave Sleek Kitten 2 out of 5 stars, and I gave Sleek Sugar 3 out of 5 stars. Just because Sleek Sugar had a better plot than Sleek Kitten. Honestly, I didn't like the nicknames. I didn't. The kitten and the sugar, with the environment of it being hockey, I just felt like it didn't go together. Yeah, so those are those 2. Then I read Untying the Knot by Megan Quinn. I will say, I did enjoy this book, but I gave it 3 out of 5 stars because I don't know why, but I really hate when books go back and forth between the past and the present. Like, it's different if a book gives you the past at the front and then you get to read the present afterwards, but this one kept going past, present, past, present, past, present. And I'm not gonna lie, it got old, and it got to the point where I was skipping whole chapters because I didn't want to read about the past when we're in the present. Like, I feel like if you wanted to recap the past, you should have did it at the front and not at the back. And that could just be me. Other people can love that it hops from past to present, but that, it just makes me not want to read that chapter, and I'm like, I could have lived without this. Because I did try to read it, but then I ended up skimming it, so I was just like, you know what, I'm just not going to read the whole chapter. But that's why I rated that 3 out of 5. I love the basis of the book. The basis of the book was that they got married, but then she wasn't feeling how she's supposed to feel in the marriage, so she asked for divorce. And so you had to watch them rebuild their relationship, and if they wanted to. Like, I love that that's what the book was about, but the way it was set up, it was just like, I may want to rethink reading this, you know? And then I honestly just read this because I hadn't read an accidental pregnancy in a while, and this one I also rated 3 out of 5 stars. I've read this author before. It's Big Bossy Problem by Lillian Monroe. I will say, so the objective is she walks his dog. He's a billionaire. She is the dog worker that works for him. She's never seen him. She's seen him once, but she's never really seen him other than the nanny cam that she and the dog take a picture in every morning, or wave at every morning, or whatever. One day she goes to the house to walk the dog. His niece and her mom show up. The niece gets dropped off, goes to her room crying. She's supposed to walk the dog, but she was like, I can't just leave the girl crying, so she goes to confront the dog. Confront the girl. While she's doing that, she sends a text to her boss, who she's never like really had a conversation with. He comes home in the middle of them confronting, and then one thing leads to another. She walks the dog, comes back. He's ready to take the girl to get clothes because she doesn't have any clothes to stay at his house, and her mom just dropped her off. Mind you, the little girl's mom is a recovering alcoholic who has slipped off the wagon again. And he was like, he tells the lady who walks the dog, like, he kind of demands it. It was like, you should come with us. She was like, and the dog world was basically like, I don't want to come with you if she isn't comfortable. Like, once I ask her whether she's comfortable or not, regardless if you pay me or not, I want to make sure she's comfortable with me. Come along. Goes along. They end up shopping. The billionaire buys the dog walker these earrings that remind him of her. He doesn't give them to her immediately though. Further along into the story, she continues to walk the dog. She only walks this dog, even though she was previously a dog walker for other dogs, but then she started her own business making dog clothes. Trying to remember without giving too much. Eventually the story leads on. The niece creates a mess, destroys his house, and he's like, I kind of need extra help. So he asks her, says she's comfortable, and they end up working that out. And then along the way, they had mutual friends, and they start to get more interested in each other. I also forgot to mention at the beginning of this, the girl who is a dog walker, she has a past with men, so she doesn't wear revealing clothing. She doesn't like to be touched. She's not as open to men as she is open to dogs. Like, she feels very uncomfortable in situations. But then she runs into an old friend from college on the street, and then she starts to open her horizons more, and that leads to her getting involved with her boss and them starting a relationship. But then as time goes on, the betrayal that she experienced in college, she expressed that to her boss, and he in a way, he basically does the same thing, which leads her to not want to talk to him anymore. But then after getting on her feet, she realizes that she's pregnant. And then after some time, I believe she forgives him, and they reconcile, and they talk about it, and they figure out what their next steps are after that. Yeah. But I don't know what I didn't like about this. Did I write a review? I didn't write a review. But I don't know. It just, some parts of it I was just like, is this was really, it just wasn't doing it for me. Like, the gist of it was cute, but it was just other things that weren't giving what it was supposed to give. I don't know how to really tell you what really didn't do it for me. Cause like, it was a couple things. It was like, the dude that was helping her run her business, like him, didn't really like him. And then I really liked the friend from college, like how they reconnected. One of my favorite parts. I really liked that even though she was kind of like conservative for herself, she was keeping her boundaries while also not giving in to demands. So I don't remember why I didn't really like this as much, because I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. So I didn't like it as much, because normally I give stuff 4 out of 5 stars unless it like really does it for me, and I give it 5 out of 5 stars. So I'm not entirely sure what it was that I hated about this or I didn't like. Moving on, I read Sinful Crown by Ava Harrison. I'm not gonna lie with you, I gave this 3 out of 5 stars. And I don't know if it was because I was in a mood when I read it or what, but this one, I want to say I pretty much ended up skimming because I feel like it was basically copy and repeat of most mafia romances, and it wasn't giving what it was supposed to give. I didn't enjoy it. I'm trying to like just remember off the back of my head, but like the thing, it was like evil men are searching for me, Gideon brings my salvation, cold, cruel, and handsome beyond measure. He shouldn't scare me. His possessive desire should make me run, but I stay. I give in to him. I give him. I'm falling in love with the monster and I refuse to stop. Only one question remains: is he my villain or my savior? And I'm like, I want to say, like, let me look at all the book activity, because I feel like I wrote like 2 things. So when I was at 9%, I put barely in the book, and she has a nickname. Like, he hasn't even met her. This is just from seeing her. And then I was like 51%, seeing as I'm 5 seconds from entering Joe Goldberg territory. Laughed my ass off this book. Like, that's all I wrote about it, and I was just like, okay. Like, it had its moments where I enjoyed it, and then it had its moments which was like, that doesn't really seem believable. Okay. And then I went back to the Sick Boy series and I read books 5 and Big 6, which is kind of a duet. They are about Braxton and Clover is a former Russian princess kind of ish, but he doesn't know that. He doesn't know she has 2 names. Basically, he goes looking for her because of his issues with her brother, which he doesn't know is her brother. He just knows that her brother is attached to her. Like, that's the only thing they know about. Like, that's the only connection they have to him is her. After he kidnaps her, he finds her and then he kidnaps her. And then she tells him that the dude they're looking for is her brother, not her boyfriend, because he thought it was her boyfriend. And then she makes a deal, was like, well, how about me for him? He accepts the deal, but behind her back, he's telling his friends, Abel and Dean, that, you know, like, even though I made this promise to her, that, you know, her for him, I can't really, you know, my revenge matters more, so I'm still gonna go after him. I'm still gonna have people looking for him. And so by the end of book 1, he ends up telling her by accident, because she was like, you just did, you know, you just told me that you broke your promise. He was like, how did you figure that out? You literally just told me. So after that, she runs away because she's mad because she caught feelings and he was still gonna break the promise that they had. So at this point, she doesn't trust him. Book 2 starts off with him looking for her and them going through their trust issues, and then her confronting the man who kidnapped her in the beginning of book 2, because a different one kidnaps her, because again, of course, her brother was in an organization where you weren't supposed to tell people you were alive, and he did because he kept a relationship with her. So that organization leader kidnaps her at the beginning of book 2. She confronts him at the end of book 2. Essentially was like, well, you killed my grandma, you killed my father, and so now I'm basically gonna kill you. Again, dark romance. If you don't like dark romance, if you don't like trigger warnings, don't read this. But if you do, I highly recommend it, because I'm obviously on book 7 that I was supposed to finish yesterday, but I didn't. So that'll be my first read of April. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching my March reading wrap up. I know this video is long. I read 23 books this month. I honestly didn't think I was gonna read that much between trying to make YouTube videos, trying to make content, yeah, and planning travel. This was definitely something I didn't see coming. Thank you guys for watching. Comment, like, subscribe. Let me know what you don't like, what you do like. See ya.